And Nihonga is a traditional Japanese painting method that I thought I had invented when I was in high school. And it turns out that it had been around in Japan for thousands of years. I loved a quote of Picasso where someone asked him, "Who is your teacher?" And he said, "The last painting I painted teaches me what I need to do next time to get better." And this is a 370-year-old temple facade that I took apart piece by piece and put back together in front of my garage that is now a studio.
Welcome to the Wheel With It podcast with your host, Devin. Let's get into the episode.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Wheel With It. My name is Devin Wieters, and today we have Allan West on the show. This was one of my favorite ones to do ever because he is such a crazy talented Nihonga artist, and you'll find out what Nihonga means in the podcast, but he was so nice and just so crazy talented, so this was one of my favorites to do. Please enjoy my conversation with the immensely talented Allan West.
Just taking a quick break from the show to remind you to subscribe to this podcast. Go to wheelwithit.com/subscribe. And if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, go to wheelwithit.com/YouTube. And if you subscribe on YouTube or Spotify, hit the bell. It really helps us out. So subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening by hitting the subscribe or follow button,
or by going to wheelwithit.com/subscribe or wheelwithit.com/YouTube.
Now back to the show.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Wheel With It. I am your host, Devin Wieters, and today we have Allan West joining us. How are you today?
Hi, hello, Devin. I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
So tell us about yourself, and then we'll get started.
Okay, I'm Allan West, and I live in Tokyo, and I've lived here in Japan for 3 years now, and I am working as a professional Nihonga painter and have been for this whole time. And Nihonga is a traditional Japanese painting method that I thought I had invented when I was in high school, and it turns out that it had been around in Japan for thousands of years. It's mixing pigments with animal protein to make a very liquid kind of paint. And for me, because I love to paint plant life, that was how I was able to get that wonderful line work that I wanted.
I should say before I ask this podcast is best watched on YouTube. So if you're listening to the audio, I would encourage you to go to YouTube because later on he's going to show us some beautiful pictures. So if you want to see those, go to wheelwithit.com/YouTube and click on this video on our YouTube channel.
Thank you.
How I got fascinated with Nihonga is I follow this guy named Kurt Thompson. He's a psychiatrist. Have you heard of him?
No, I'm really bad with names. So I could have heard of him, and it's not in my memory. Yeah.
He's a psychiatrist whose work has really affected my life. You should look him up. And he's written several books. And in it, he uses Nihonga and Kintsugi as illustrations quite often. And he talks about Fujimura. That's how I've heard of Fujimura. And so I just wanted to learn more because I've heard it talked about so much.
Oh, fantastic.
What exactly is Nihonga and Kintsugi for the people who don't know? Okay,
I'm just going to write down Kurt Thompson because I know I'm going to want to look that up. So the fun thing is that Makoto Fujimura was a classmate of mine. So we have this great connection. Yeah, so I was at the Tokyo University of the Arts at the same time as he was. Yeah.
So what was it like being in class with him? Because he just sounds amazing.
It was quite remarkable. Yeah, I think a lot of the references he would bring up were just on a different realm from a lot of our classmates and professors. I think he just really was coming from a different place than most of the people in the program.
Tell us what Nihonga and Kintsugi actually are for people who don't know.
Yeah, and that is an excellent question, partly because so when we were both there, this would be 30 years ago, that the debate had already been raging as to what Nihonga is. And if there was any place where that sort of definition could be decided, it would be Tokyo University of the Arts. And yet there were two schools of thought. And one school of thought was, as long as you use the traditional materials, it didn't matter whatever theme you used, you were painting about. That would be Nihonga. The other school of thought was, it didn't matter what materials you used, as long as you conveyed the spirit of Japan, whatever that is, through your artwork and as the subject matter. And so it does mean that even to this day, I'll have people. So across the street from me is a place called Nihon Bijutsuin, which is one of the academies associated with Nihonga, and very much the determination of the orthodoxy, so to speak. And there was an old man with a fellow carrying his briefcase, and he walks in and goes, thinking I'm not listening, of course, but this is not Nihonga. And I'm sitting here thinking, what's fine with me? I didn't start because I wanted to be a Nihonga painter. I just wanted to paint my own things. And so I felt like that was funny, that it was important for him to draw a line regarding to But the traditional materials the pigments are all made from natural minerals like lapis lazuli and malachite and tiger's eye and gemstone type things, gold and silver leaf, and that they are the binder. We all know about oil paints are made with oil and pigment. Instead of the oil, we use animal protein to adhere all the particles of color to the surface. And that animal protein that's most used is deer hide protein. Yeah. And so we have to make the paint every day.
So what made you want to move to Japan and start this in the first place?
As a young kid, I started painting when I was 9, and my favorite subject matter was plant life. And yet I found that oil paints were just too gluey and viscous to be able to get that nice line work that you would need to convey plants. And so I started experimenting, and in high school found that the kind of base coat that's the primer that was used in the Renaissance, rapid skin glue, was something that if I mixed it with a pigment, would make this very liquid opaque thing that I thought would work as paint. And I've been painting like that for quite a while in high school, and submitted it to a juried show and was accepted at a local gallery. And at the opening party was asked all about the materials and the techniques. And when I talked about it, the woman said, I think the Japanese have been using a similar technique for a very long time. That was very disappointing for me, because I thought that I had made this invention that would change the world, the art world, forever. And yet here it was, she thought it had already been invented. And I grew up in Washington, D.C., and so I went to the Library of Congress thinking that was where I could find out more. And they had lots of books on Japanese art, but just not about the techniques. And so I realized I had to come. And so at 19, I came with the money that I made selling the painting, and thought it'd be about a couple weeks and I'd learn all I needed to know. And it wasn't so easy after all.
What were the challenges when you first got Japan and started doing this?
Yeah, so I guess actually the biggest challenge was, I thought that in Japan, the image that we have is preserving tradition and really prioritizing culture and things like that. And when I got here and I went to the art supply store thinking I'm going to learn more about the materials and the techniques, I said, oh no, we specialize in Western style painting. So we have acrylic paints and oil paints and pastels. And I said, I'm looking for the traditional kind, not even knowing the word Nihonga yet. And he said, well, you even here? I've got Monet and Picasso. You've got wonderful paints there. Why are you even coming here? And I said, well, I've been looking for these pigments, these materials. And he said, I don't know anyone here, but maybe Kyoto would be good, and so Tokyo. And so I ended up having to work to make a living so I could stay on and get a visa and continue traveling, trying to find these art supplies. So I've been asked to write a book, and the editors even said, readers aren't going to believe that it took 3 years for you to find an art supply store that specializes in this particular technique. And they said, we want something concrete that would express that to the reader. And so, by the way, this is the book. They hang me in Tokyo. And so what I did was I went to the Bureau of Statistics and looked up the number of art supply stores in Japan. And there are 680 art supply stores in all of Japan, but only 10 of them specialize in the Nihonga materials.
Wow, what makes the material so hard to come by?
There are a couple of, that's a really good question because it wouldn't make sense. What happens is a couple of things. One is that because it's made with animal protein, it doesn't last very long. And so when you mix the protein with the pigment, you need to use whatever you've made within that day or it goes rancid. And it takes more work than just opening a tube and squeezing it out on a palette.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is the pigments themselves are very expensive when you consider they're powdered lapis lazuli and powdered malachite, and so they're gemstones. Not only are the materials themselves quite expensive, but the effort that goes into pulverizing them and making sure the grain sizes are all even so it's not lumpy and things like that is quite expensive because we have craftsmen do that for us because it's quite involved. So yeah, I think compared to mass-produced art supplies, it's going to be more expensive and just take a lot more work to do too.
So how long does it take to do the grains?
It's interesting. They'll sell them according to the grain size, and the finer the grain, the lighter the color. And so what ends up happening is you'll often choose a grain size or the tone, or you'll have to hope that you get the tone you want for the grain size that you need. But what happens is they'll grind, pulverize the minerals, and then what they'll do is they'll run it down a water sluice. And what happens is, depending on where in the sluice it hits, it will sink faster or slower. So the larger grains will hit the bottom first, and then the finest grains will be the ones down the farthest away. And that's after all the sifting. I think they sift it 7 times with different sized mesh and things like that as well. It's quite involved.
So what can be done with this form of art that can't be done with normal art?
Oh, yeah. I think normal is a difficult term.
Yes, that's why I put big air quotes around normal.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a couple of the things that for me anyway, I think everyone who uses this technique will probably feel differently, but for me, the liquidity of the paint is such a wonderful thing that it means that I can get some really nice, juicy lines. So for me, the paintings of El Greco and the saints that look like flickering flames with all
I've never seen those.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He uses a very wavy line, and it gives you the sense of being really alive and a spiritual sense that you get, that you're this flickering flame of the soul kind of feeling when you see an El Greco painting. And for me, I think that kind of line work was so exciting. That's why I wanted to use a liquid kind of paint, and that's why I thought I invented this. But so for me to be able to get the kind of line work where the lines get thick and thin as it goes helps give you the sense of life and vitality in the plants as well that I'm painting. Let me see. What was the question again? Oh, what's special about this technique? Thank you, thank you. That's something that you really can't get with any kind of other different material. Is this sense of fluidity, liquidness, but it does mean that you have to lay it on the ground as you paint it and so lean over it, because it's so liquid that if you put it up like this, it'll just run down. And so it does mean that on a very big painting, you need to create a platform on which to stand over it as well.
So how long did it take you to master the technique? And what's your favorite thing to paint with the technique?
The length of time it takes to master, I think it's one of those things that's really difficult because it's hard to say, oh, I've hit that line and now I'm there thing. But I think it's a continual process. I loved a quote of Picasso where someone asked him, who is your teacher? And he said, the last painting I painted teaches me what I need to do next time to get better. And I really like that idea of everything we do, we can look back at and analyze that and think, okay, I'm going to do this to improve it, and I need to do this to make it better. And so then we can apply that to the next project, and then next time again we get better and better.
Yeah. How is there any popularity with this technique in Western culture, and how do Westerners look at it?
I think that it's not well enough known yet to be able to really say one way or another. I think that we're very accustomed to that oily surface of a painting that's been highly varnished and that sort of a thing. And what I really like about these is they're quite velvety in that they're matte, except for the gold or silver leaf is very shiny. And so you have those contrasts that are interesting. But I think they're quite well received. And I've been on the Lonely Planet guidebook for about a decade now.
What is the Lonely Planet guidebook?
I think it's the largest, best-selling tour guidebook for Japan. And so
if I go to Japan, I'll have to get that book.
Absolutely. I recommend it very highly. And one of the things that's really fun about it is they're good about giving you some very good experiences that give you a real sense of Japan and the people that live there and that sort of a thing. And it's not all temples and palaces like a lot of tours are that are heavily tourist trappy too, which makes it fun.
Okay. But, yeah, what's like the best hidden secret of Japan that like tourists would know, we need to check out?
I feel like one of the things that's very sad about the way Japan has made the experience for visitors is that they want to have the hotels be as comfortable and familiar as visitors would expect at home. So a carpeted hotel room with a bed and everything just looks like it could be anywhere in the States or Europe or whatever, when, what I would have wanted when I was visiting, actually got living here, is tatami mats on the floor and pulling out a futon and putting it back in the morning and pulling out a little tea table and eating on that and then putting that away, and that kind of lifestyle that's as it is here in Japan. Yeah. So when people come and visit my studio, one of the things that often happens if they're not Japanese is, oh, I finally get to walk around on tatami mats. How wonderful, and things like that. So it's kind of, oh, here are sliding doors. So it's kind of enjoyable that way.
Yeah, so that's, but I would want the Americanized hotel room just from an accessibility standpoint, because I cannot fold anything to save my life. I need to learn how to fold. I can't fold t-shirts. I can't fold hoodies. I can fold t-shirts if I really try, but like, I can't fold very much, so I would feel so bad. I'm like, they're probably gonna think, they're probably gonna be offended because I folded the thing so bad. But
Oh, that's one of the things that's really fun about stones is that essentially you don't have to worry about making your bed because essentially you've got a big, like a mat on the bottom and then a big thick duvet on the top. And then when you wake up in the morning, you just sort of put that in half and then the other one in half and you just shove it in the closet and you're done.
okay,
None of that getting everything flat and straight and making sure that the pillows are all, none of that. So it makes it really easy. Yeah.
maybe I would want the Japanese.
Yeah. It would be a fun experience, at least for one day, I think, if nothing else, just to see what it's like.
Yeah, are there any like authentic Japanese hotels in Japan?
Yeah, you have to seek them out because they're not the
Yeah.
that come on the top of the list essentially. But so I live here in Yanaka, and it's the temple district of Tokyo, and so it's fun in that respect because it's got a lot of history and that sort of thing. But there's two inns here that are also that kind of traditional way as well. And Sawanoya is just down the street from me, and Mr. Sawa is a very nice fellow, and yeah, makes it a good experience too.
How's the accessibility in Japan?
There. So when I first came, not so hot. I have to be quite honest with you. Are you bad? No, awful. You just don't.
Yeah, I figured that.
Yeah. But I think most places in the world were that way too. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, they did create a bunch of laws regarding accessibility in the 90s. And I think pretty much, I can't say it's ideal, but I think just everything has to be, it is accessible in one way or another. Even the old temples that are national treasures where you're not allowed to like even put a nail in anything, they've managed to figure out a way to make it accessible without affecting the historic buildings. And I think that's really cool.
That is amazing because what we run into down here is they can't like, do anything to the historic buildings because they're so afraid that they're gonna like mess them up that they just like don't do anything. So that's awesome that they figured out a way to do that.
Yeah, and so that, I mean, it's really cool because they don't just say, "Oh, they're historic buildings, so you don't have that responsibility anymore." But it does mean that they have to be really creative about how to do it. And I have to tell you that I think the Japanese Constitution is so fantastic because we have a son who has Asperger's, and in the Constitution, the law says that everyone has the right to employment. That's part of
That
the
is, oh my goodness. That is, I wish we had something like that here. People are going to try to cancel me for saying that, but I don't care. I wish we had something like that here because employment is a huge issue in the disability community.
Yeah. And so what happens is that corporations over a certain level of financial status or whatever are required to find some way of employing people with various disabilities. And so what they've done is this financial institution has a series of hydroponic gardens or hydroponic, what do you call it? Yeah, vegetable gardens.
What is a hydroponic garden? I'm sorry.
So it's water based, and it means that it's a soilless growing. And so I think there's like mineral enriched fluids or water that these plants grow in and indoors in a kind of a artificial light environment, but it means that they grow very fast and produce a lot of fruit very efficiently. And my son works there because he does a really good job with them. And then that's part of their disability hiring program. And so it works out really well. And I've just been really excited and impressed and pleased with how that kind of thing policy works for everybody here in Japan too.
Yeah, that is so amazing. I wish we had some kind of amendment like that here, because obviously employers can't discriminate, but if an employee needed like remote work and the company didn't allow remote work, they could say, oh, we don't allow remote work. So
Yeah.
bye. And
Employers can always find a reason. That's the other problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I wish we had something like that here, because that would be so amazing.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I really love about the Constitution here is the equality of men and women is part of the Constitution. And I think that's so cool. And this is something you were talking about being worried about getting canceled or whatever. For me, it's controversial, but after the war, there was a whole consortium that was put together of Americans and Japanese people and everything. And essentially, the Constitution was written by a group of Americans and Japanese people. And so a lot of people feel sort of Americans imposed this Constitution onto the Japanese, but nobody's complaining because it's really good in that way for just all of the safety net related things. Yeah. So national health care and all of that sort of thing. Yeah. Quite good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Classmate of Fujimura's that we were mentioning in the pre-chat. I think we might have mentioned it up top, but can you tell us more about Fujimura and just his talent that is so crazy?
Yeah. When I don't know his work now, but when I knew him, he used a lot of sort of thin washes and veils of color and very abstract. And so I think he really, for many of the professors, it was always interesting to hear their critiques, because I think for many of them it was difficult to totally know how to critique abstract art done with these materials. Yeah.
Have some pictures that you would like to show us.
Oh, yeah. This is using a gold and silver leaf, and I take a bamboo knife and put the silver or gold leaf on a deer skin pillow, and then use the bamboo knife to cut it into squares like this. Or you can see at the bottom, there's some silver hair-like things too, and cut them into very thin hair-like strips as well. And because it's so light and delicate, all it needs is just a little puff of air for it to fly into the places that I want to include it on the painting.
That is awesome.
Thank you. So should we go to the next one?
Yes.
So this painting is done using that gold and silver technique. And this is a commissioned painting. So about 80% of what I paint is commissioned. And the person who commissioned it just loves blue. And so I decided to do different blue flowers of the different seasons. And so pine trees for winter, so maybe that's not a flower, but then spring is wisteria, and then summer is morning glories, and autumn is grapes. And so that's that painting.
That is beautiful. Like I said at the top, go to YouTube, realwithit.com/YouTube, click on this video on our YouTube channel, and these paintings are just like so beautiful.
And my website is www.allanwest.jp.com, and you can get like a virtual tour of my studio too there. So
that is awesome. We will put that link in the show notes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And so when I was asked to write the book, They Hang Me in Tokyo, they said that I needed to be descriptive and all that, because if they made it an art book, it would be too expensive, and they just wanted my story. And so I had to paint a lot of visual word pictures, but I did ask them, if nothing else, please let me have one of my paintings on the cover. So this is the painting that I chose for the cover of the book.
Yeah, because it is. How long did it take you to paint that?
This was quite a while. It's about 5 months, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, because
this is quite tall.
Wow.
About,
how much does a painting like this cost?
To make or to buy? To buy. This is huge. This is 8 feet tall. So
yeah. Okay.
She-
So,
so this one was interesting. So she loves chamber music, and both classical Japanese music and classical Western music. And she built this chamber music hall into her house and wanted something as a backdrop for the quartet or quintet or whatever. And so she commissioned me to paint something, and I came up with this idea and sent her a kind of a preliminary sketch, and then she said, "Let's go with that." And so this is what came of it. Yeah.
that is like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, really.
Oh, yeah. So it's
So,
fun too with commissioned work. It's a little bit like a collaboration. I get the sense of what she likes, and then I can play off that. And so I definitely don't think I would have come up with this idea if it wasn't for her.
so can people, how much does this cost to buy? About probably, I can't afford that, but
Yeah. So I can. It pretty much. My wife has this algorithm, and it goes according to the size and the shape and everything. And so we scale them up or down according to people's needs and that sort of thing. So about 80% of what I paint is commissioned. And but the other thing is, it's not more expensive if it's commissioned than just plain old
yeah.
already there. So, yeah, and we'll go through I can show you through some of the things in the studio, and you'll see the prices on the works. So that should give a good idea too. Yeah.
Okay. So you can go to the next one if you would
Okay,
like.
sure. Yeah, thank you. Oh, yes. So this is the book.
Yes, this is
Cover.
cover of the book.
Yeah. So this is the neighborhood that my studio is in. It's called Yanaka, and this is the corner store next door to my studio, and it has this big giant Himalaya cedar tree there, like an umbrella over our neighborhood. And I talk about this, see here. So this is the front of my studio, and it used to be a dirt floor auto body garage, and then there was a temple that was going to be rebuilt in the neighborhood where I am, the temple district, and so I bought the facade from them. So this is a 370-year-old temple facade that I took apart piece by piece and put back together in front of my garage that is now a studio.
Okay. That is an amazing picture. Are you a photographer too?
No, not at all. Thank you for thinking I am. This took a bit of doing, but yeah, thank you.
That's an amazing picture. Okay, you can go to the next one.
So this is a motif that I like to use a lot. It's pine and wisteria, and there's a kind of symbolism about a pine tree as being about stability and how the leaves don't change color or fall off, but it also doesn't flower. And wisteria, which is this flower here, needs to climb up something to get to the sunlight in order to blossom. And so when it climbs up on a pine tree, um, it can blossom, and then the pine tree appears to be thriving and flourishing because it has the wisteria flowers on it too. And this is a symbol of the ideal couple or the symbiotic relationship. And so because of that, I purposefully decided to make the pine branches the same thickness as the wisteria vines so that it's not necessarily this is supporting the other or one is stronger than the other, anything like that. I wanted to make them equal in that way.
That's amazing. Okay.
Thank you. So let's go to the next one. And this is just one that's was a fun commission as well. That's willows and autumn maples. Yeah.
But these things are crazy. I can't imagine the work that goes into these things.
It does take a lot of work, but it's also really fun to watch as I gradually get closer and closer to what I'm aiming at and completion and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of planning ahead that has to be done. So I need to make sure that the silver leaf on the bottom where the water is and the gold leaf above where the sky is needs to be in the right place. And I need to do the sort of the light blue lines on the water in such a way that later on when the green comes on, it doesn't interrupt the flow. It gets a little complicated, but that's part of the fun, is there's lots of logistical issues as well. Comes up.
Yeah. So do you have pieces for sale on your website, or are they all like commissioned?
Yeah, I do have some pieces on the website. Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll see in the studio how the things that are here. So it's interesting. It's always nice to have things for sale in the studio that people can see and choose that way. But they're also very helpful because people can say, "Oh, I like this, but that's not the right size for my house," or "Oh, I really like this, but the colors need to be a little bit lighter or darker, or whatever." Things like that. So I need to always have something here to give people ideas, and they can work off of them.
Okay, you can go to the next one.
Oh, this is just, I have one of my studios is a geisha academy, and
That is so fun.
sketching
Oh,
of, so this is a concert that I was sketching for, and she wanted me to take, now why can't I move this now? Come on, next one. There we go. So like I was saying about how the paint is very liquid, you can't stand it up like an oil painting. It has to be lying flat in order to keep it from running. But if it's a big painting like this one, then what I do is I have this platform that I have on rollers that I can roll back and forth. So I'm sitting on the platform as I paint. So essentially, I'm pretty much spend most of my days sitting on my knees in order to paint this way. Yeah.
that is so awesome.
Oh, thank you. Now, the painting in the background was commissioned by the Evermere Cosmetics Company, and then they decided they wanted it to be a flat panel rather than a folding screen panel, and so I painted it again. And this one is right before a doctor's office bought it to put it in their waiting room. So that's now.
That is awesome.
Yeah, fun. This is when I was a high school student, and that was how I painted then.
Oh my gosh, you painted that in high school?
Yes. Yeah.
That is, I could not do that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of, I feel like I want to revisit that theme again now and see how that would be different. There's something fun about this motif of having a lot of that sort of chaotic environment and yet having the flowers be completely unaffected by the chaos. They're just dangling straight and quiet. It's a little bit like what we have to do is maintain our serenity no matter what is going on in the world around us. And I think that's, for me, that's symbolic of the effort we need to put out too.
That's crazy.
So
That's my favorite one. I
Oh,
love that
thank
one.
you. Thank you. I really like this one too. It's really fun. And I sure enjoyed painting it as well. Yeah. So I have, this is a commission painting, as you can tell, and it's for a banquet hall. But it was fun to imagine this scenery where you've got the mountains in the background and the sky and pine tree arching over. In Japan, if you go to some place where there's a pine tree where the branch arches over a place that you're supposed to walk under the branch, then that is called the welcoming pine, and it's a way that it's a form of hospitality to show the people that you're welcoming them. This is a banquet hall where the geishas would play their shamisen and dance, and then all this food would come out, and then even the plates and the dishes and everything would have been commissioned especially to meet with that theme of that day, and the food would all be to match the theme of that particular get together, and the geisha would wear a kimono that was especially to meet that theme. And then so I've been commissioned, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times for this banquet hall, and each theme would be a little bit different. But this would be a good one for the new year. The pine tree is a very fortuitous thing. The owner's name is Shota, which means pine boy, translated into English. And so he wanted it to be of the pine. Painting I was painting while I was sitting on the platform was also for him, and that was also a pine tree as well. So he's a good regular customer.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So let me see the next one here. So this was an exhibition of my work at the Kyoto City Museum, and the one to the left is used as a backdrop for the No theater, No drama, and in the backdrop there's always an aged pine tree that's used for the stage, and this was commissioned in order to be used for traveling No drama troops. And so this went through Europe and Asia and the United States for performances by the No drama troupe. Yeah, so that makes it kind of
That
fun.
is awesome.
Thank you. And then the other three paintings are other things, whatever. Yeah. Oh, and this is the actual No drama. This is Akura Jido is the name of the play. And so that's my painting in the background. And
That's awesome.
yeah,
So
thank you. So when I was
that's
in
your painting right there.
yeah,
I don't see it.
that's right. So when I was in junior high, I was painting for a local drama troupe, the backgrounds for them. So that was sort of the beginning of taking commissions, and I guess it's the end. That was my beginning of taking commissions and orders from people and that sort of thing. So I started quite large actually, and so from quite early on, taking commissions was actually the earliest way I was making money. But it's interesting because I found that it's a lot, for me anyway, in my temperament, it's easier to work with clients and paint for them than it is to just make things and throw them on a gallery wall and hope that some get sold and some maybe come back. But for me, that collaborative experience of working with the client makes it so much more interesting and fun that I've just decided to be as creative with my career as I am with my art. And I think that's a good way to take it.
That is amazing. What do you hope do you hope this art form gets more popular in the US kind of? And how do you think we'll accomplish that?
I do, and I don't think there's any need to push it necessarily, but I think that it's different enough that I think people would find it interesting, even if it's not necessarily to their taste. But I do think that just coming in contact with art made in different ways and different modes and in different forms of expression is always good cultural experience. Yeah, I recommend.
And I use the service called Podmatch. That's how I found you.
Oh,
And you have 10 questions that you're always ready to answer. So I use those as guides.
sure.
And so this one's off the Podmatch. How did you incorporate the modern art techniques
Into my work?
Yeah.
I think it's to some degree or another, it's always just going to naturally enter into my work just because of the day and age that we live in. And yet I'm not too terribly invested in modernism, and so I'm not trying very hard to do that actually.
Do you have any do you have a cell phone? Do you have
Oh, I do have a cell phone. I use it for communication, but it doesn't really, I don't know that it has anything to do with my art necessarily. Yeah.
Does it have is it a smartphone or is it just a flip phone?
A smartphone, yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how technologically savvy are you? Are you one of those people that are like, I need help or like navigate?
I think, Devin, I wish I could say I'm just it's so easy and I just breeze through things. I think I'm I'm I'd like to say I use my iPhone without any trouble, and I think I do, but then my sons will say, Daddy, this is not, if you do this, it's much faster, or,
Yeah.
or whatever. And I really appreciate your introducing me to some new apps that I need to use as well. And so I feel like it's not as much my facility with technology as the fact that a lot of it I just haven't had any, I didn't know about it or had access to it. So I sometimes jokingly say that with my work, the most latest technology that I use is probably 1,000 years old. So that's a problem. But
So is technology addiction in Japan, I would assume is like just as bad as here, right? You always see people looking at their phone.
I think you're right. I think it's probably just the same. In fact, maybe it might be, I don't know, it's interesting. You'll see on the train, everybody's on their phone. But then again, might be a really good use of your time while you're riding a train too. And
Yeah.
maybe they're really good at
I don't
socializing.
really know any unless you're riding with somebody. Like if you're riding to work, like you don't really know anybody on the trains. I love having conversations, but it's not like you have like this long lost friend that you haven't seen in like 15 years and you just can't like stop talking. There's only like so much you can talk about.
That's right. That's right. And there's only so much you can talk about in front of people too. That's the other problem.
Yes.
And I do think that a lot of that too, people used to get all their reading done on the train. And then when smartphones came out, and a lot of ebooks are being read on the train too.
Yeah.
So
That's the only thing I read. Like everything's ebook because I can't handle physical. Well, almost everything. If a book really impacts me, I'll buy like a physical copy just to display in my room. But as far as actually reading it goes, I will. It's only ebook because I cannot. I don't have. I have trouble handling physical books sometimes.
yeah, yeah. And for me too, it's nice to have something that I can listen to while I'm painting. So I
Yeah.
think that ebooks are really a great new addition to the printed word as far as accessibility and enjoyability and things like that too. So, yeah,
Yeah. Anything else you would like to add before we get off here? And then I have one more thing that I would like to share.
sure. I don't know that I had anything that I just felt I needed to say, but I've really been enjoying talking with you, and your questions have been excellent. And yeah, no, I really enjoyed this. And I'm sure that maybe there's something that I left out that you'll pick up on and ask me about. Otherwise, I think.
I hope that I think we covered it. I just wanted to show
Mhm.
that this is Fujimura's work.
Oh yes, yes,
And he's
yeah,
written Times articles. This is a video. I haven't watched it, but this is a
mhm,
video.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah,
here's one inspired by the Gospels.
yeah.
Here's
Cool.
one inspired by the Transfiguration.
Mhm.
Here's so I just wanted to show a little bit of
Yeah,
Fujimura's work because
yeah.
honestly, he's amazing.
Have you been able to interview him yet?
No, but I think
Mhm,
I would love to. I want to interview Kurt first
mhm,
and then do Fujimura because we're gonna talk about Fujimura, I would think, in the Kurt podcast. But
yeah,
and with the move and everything, like I'm very careful about the interviews that I take till the first of the year because I'm gonna be moving and I don't want to have some like really important interview and then get sidetracked and like
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that reminds me. You were going to ask about Kintsugi too, weren't
Yeah.
you?
Oh yeah. Give us a brief thing of what
Okay.
Suki is and
Okay. Yeah, I need to research the actual name of the people, but there was a very prized tea bowl that was considered the national treasure that ended up breaking. And the shogun who owned it sent it to the tea master and said, "Would you please fix this for me?" and it was this beautiful black tea bowl. And usually you just use lacquer to glue it together so you couldn't tell. But when a lacquer was used to fuse it together, the tea master then on all of that adhesive, sticky lacquer part, he put a gold leaf on it. And so the crack part had this wonderful thin gold line that went around in the black and in high contrast. And the shogun, I don't think was very excited about that because he was expecting it to be, just hidden and not seen. And yet when the tea master brought it out and showed him, he realized that there was something about the history of the tea bowl that was then became part of the tea bowl itself and the aesthetic. And so there's something very beautiful about, and I like that with the trees too. So I put these knots in the trees, give you that sense of the history where one of the branches got knocked off and the knot is just where that place that got some damage is grown over and become part of the history of the tree, and it gives it character and gives it some interest. Just like all of us, we experience difficult things, and it's how we get over them and grow from them that gives us interesting as well. So
that is awesome. I really have got to go, but this has been amazing. I will have you back on for like 5 parts if you want to do it.
Sure.
Because this has been amazing. This might not be the most performing podcast, but I don't care because it was my favorite to do.
Well, thank you, stream of consciousness. I'll have to apologize, but yeah.
Oh no, I'm stream of conscious too.
So that's good. It worked out really well then together.
All right. I will see you guys next episode. Be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe, and we will see you guys next episode. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Devin.
So like I said, that was one of my favorite conversations ever. Please be sure to follow him on social media and see his amazing art. We will have all those links in the show notes, and we will see you guys next episode. Bye, guys.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to follow the show and our guests on social media and subscribe. Be sure to hit the bell so you'll get notified when we upload new episodes. See you next time.